swept floors in silence, a widowed single father forgotten by the world he once served. Every morning he walked the halls of Navy HQ with a mop in one hand and his daughter's tiny hand in the other. To most, he was just a janitor. Ordinary. Invisible. Until one afternoon when a young officer challenged him and the room froze as the Admiral spoke his long-buried call sign. Suddenly, everyone realized, heroes don't disappear. They just learn to walk quietly. And sometimes the quietest man in the room once commanded oceans. Before we begin, if stories of honor, family, and quiet heroism speak to your heart, we invite you to join our channel. Subscribe to stay with us, where every story reminds us that the greatest battles are fought not on battlefields, but in the human heart. Ready? Let's begin. The Navy headquarters had a rhythm to it, one that only those who had lived long enough with discipline could truly feel. Mornings arrived like a salute, crisp, deliberate, orderly. The gleaming floors reflected the fluorescent lights above lines, sharp as parade formations. Voices echoed through corridors, firm commands, clipped radio calls, distant drill cadence drifting in from the courtyard. To most, this building was steel and structure command and chain of command. To Michael Carter, it was simply a workplace. And today, like every weekday, he guided a small hand beside him. Lily Carter hopped along tiles, as if each square was a stepping stone across a river only she could see. Her light blue dress swayed backpack, bouncing gently. She hummed a tune off-key, unconcerned that anyone might hear. Childhood had not yet learned restraint. Michael walked a pace slower than his trained stride wanted to. Years in uniform had taught him to move with purpose, but fatherhood had taught him to match the steps of little feet, especially when those feet were all he had left of the woman who once smoothed his collar before deployment, whispered prayers into his chest, and waited at docks with hope in her eyes. He carried a plastic cleaning bucket in one hand and pushed a floor mop with the other. Simple, necessary, honest work. He had worn ranks, once real ones, that carried storms and steel with them, but no title in his life ever mattered as much as Dad. "Is this the cafeteria hallway?" Daddy Lily whispered, though her whisper carried the volume of excitement more than secrecy. Michael nodded. "It is. That means Marines on coffee break. They march fast even when they're not marching, so stay close." Lily giggled, clutching his sleeve. "I like how they stomp." "They don't stomp," he corrected gently. "They plant their boots with respect." She blinked thoughtfully, absorbing the lesson like sunlight on water. "Respect," she repeated, tasting the word. "Like how I say thank you to the lunch lady, and how I don't yell during the flag." Michael's lips softened. Exactly like that. They reached the main lobby. Sailors and officers passed in swift currents. White uniforms, gold buttons, gleaming ribbons, lined like silent stories across chests. Most barely noticed the janitor with the mop. Some nodded politely. A few young ones stepped aside out of instinct drilled into them, unsure why their body reacted, only feeling perhaps something familiar in the quiet authority in his eyes. But authority was not what Michael carried anymore. He carried peace, or at least the constant rebuilding of it. Daddy Lily tugged his sleeve again. "Can I help clean today?" Michael crouched to her height, loosening the tight knot of his posture. "Your job is schoolwork and drawing me those masterpieces." "Mine is floors." But he plucked a wipe from a small pack clipped to his belt and handed it to her. "You can be my special assistant for railings." Her face lit like dawn. Special Assistant Lily Carter reporting for duty. He straightened, and something warm flickered in his chest. It wasn't pride in military form. It was gentler, deeper. The kind earned not from orders, given but moments, shared mornings. Like this when the world was quiet enough to hear hope breathe. As he mopped his eyes, drifted to the sea, painting mounted across the hall storm clouds over rolling waves, a ship cutting through the surf. The kind of peace civilians admired for beauty, veterans admired for memory. He felt the ocean inside him stir, a tide that never fully receded. Quiet floors, quiet hearts. That had been his mantra since leaving command. Silence didn't erase pain, but it gave pain a place to rest. He remembered Sarah's voice the night she made him promise, her hand cold, but her gaze fierce with love. Be her harbor, not the world's hero. He had stood at many helms, none steadier than holding Lily's hand. A group of junior officers rounded the corner, laughter, sharp, youthful confidence bouncing like brass on concrete. They noticed Lily wiping a railing with utmost seriousness, her small brow furrowed. One officer chuckled. Child labor program. That's new. Another smirked. Bet he tells her Navy's a playhouse. Some folks really cling to the fantasy. Michael said nothing. Words used incorrectly had a way of falling on themselves. He had learned long ago that pride defended too loudly often came from insecurity, not strength. Lily looked up, confusion clouding her small face. Daddy, are we a fancy? Michael gave her a smile meant only for her. Fantasy, he corrected softly. It means make-believe. But you and I, we're real. And kindness is real. That's all that matters. The officers moved on. They would learn. Or life would teach them. The Navy had a way of sanding arrogance, the same way sea wind sanded paint off steel, slowly, relentlessly, thoroughly. A senior chief passed moments later. His pace slowed. His eyes landed on Michael for a long beat, first at the face, then the shoulders, then the steady stance. Recognition hovered like a shadow behind thought, his brow furrowed, lips parting slightly. Then discipline returned. He gave a tight, respectful nod and moved on without a word. Michael dipped his mop again. If some remembered fragments, let them stay as fragments. Legends belong to the sea, not the halls of routine. He had seen enough metals polished, and hearts neglected to choose differently now. Daddy, Lily whispered again. When I grow up, I want to work here too. Michael paused. 1,000 visions flickered her in uniform, her in a lab coat, her at a piano on a dim stage. Possibilities infinite, unshackled by destiny. Freedom was the most sacred promise he could offer. You can be anything, he said. Anywhere. As long as you stay gentle and brave. Like you, she said. He tapped her nose with a knuckle. Braver than me. Braver and happier. A distant intercom crackled. Announcements rolled. The day marched forward. Cohorts of future leaders hurried past, unaware that quiet greatness swept floors beside them. Not fated greatness, but chosen humility. There was difference. Michael resumed his work. Lily hummed again. The Navy HQ breathed its regimented breath around them. Duty, honor, sacrifice. All still here. Only worn differently now. Peace, he had learned, wasn't the absence of storms. It was knowing which battles mattered enough to fight. And right now, the only battle he cared for was protecting a 6-year-old world where wonder still won. Morning routines faded into the soft hum of noon. By the time Michael finished polishing the last section of railing, Lily had already moved on to drawing a destroyer and a smiling stick-figure dad at the helm. The headquarters beat on with purpose, officers briefing commands, moving the living machinery of national defense. Yet peace was fragile, and like the sea, still waters could turn in a single breath. Lily sat at a nearby bench with her notebook feet swinging above the polished tile. Michael wrung out the mop, calm and methodical. The janitor cart stood like a humble sentinel beside him. Then came the sharp cadence of boots, Not worn by time like a seasoned chief's, but fresh, eager just shy of arrogance. A young lieutenant face, smooth as a new gold bar, strode into the hall, with a stack of folders tucked under one arm. His uniform was spotless, ribbons proudly aligned. Ambition clung to him like aftershave. He stopped short, brow creasing as though the sight of Michael offended his sense of order. "You there?" he said, pointing a finger like a weapon. Civilian maintenance staff shouldn't be in secure admin corridors during outgoing command prep. Michael paused. His hands rested lightly on the mop handle. "I'm assigned to this floor today, Lieutenant," he answered, voice steady. "Public corridor. No restricted doors open." The lieutenant's eyes narrowed. "That jacket of yours. Why are you wearing olive flight greens in a Navy facility, trying to play soldier?" Michael turned, meeting the young man's stare with quiet patience. The flight jacket hugged him naturally soft, with wear patches faded from years, not days under the sun and salt. It didn't boast. It remembered. "Just a coat," Michael said simply. Lily glanced up, sensing tension. Her pencil paused. Her father's voice had shifted despite its gentleness, deeper, steadier, like the ocean settling before rising. The lieutenant scoffed. "You janitors like to pretend you're part of this place, don't you? Dressing up like some washed-out wannabe pilot." He stepped closer, sneer tightening. "This is a United States Navy command building, not a costume party." Michael stood straight, reflexively aligning his posture. It wasn't submission. It was history. Years of standing tall in storms on decks, slick with seawater and risk. "Lieutenant," he said evenly, "disrespect is unbecoming of the uniform." The officer's jaw twitched. "Don't quote regs at me. You're a janitor. Know your place." Lily's small frame slid off the bench. She hurried to Michael's side and clung to his hand. "Daddy," she whispered, voice trembling. Michael cupped her head gently. "It's all right, Lily," he murmured. He didn't raise his voice. His stillness spoke louder than anger ever could. "Why don't you sit back down, finish your ship drawing?" But Lily stayed, chin lifted, eyes fierce with the stubborn courage of someone who believed her father carried the whole sky with him. The lieutenant's gaze flicked to her. "Children don't belong in federal facilities without clearance." "She is cleared," Michael replied, calm as tide. "Within authorized visitor time and supervised." "By you," the officer snapped. A civilian ridiculous. A few sailors slowed, sensing a storm building. One petty officer straightened, subtly uncertainty sharpening his expression, like a man trying to remember whether he had seen that quiet janitor somewhere that mattered. The young lieutenant pointed at Michael's jacket patch. "And that emblem, remove it. That insignia is Navy property." Michael exhaled softly. Not tired, just aware. The way a seasoned sailor knows a wave before it rises. Before he could speak, Lily stepped forward, eyes blazing. "He's not pretending," she burst out, tiny voice shaking. "My daddy's a hero." The hallway froze. You could hear the fluorescent hum again, the distant footfalls, the heartbeat in a father's chest. Michael knelt, meeting his daughter's tear-rimmed eyes. "Lily," he whispered, brushing her cheek. "Heroes are the ones who stay kind, even when it's hard." Her lower lip wobbled, but she nodded, trusting him completely. The lieutenant laughed, short, sharp, brittle. "Touching. You've got the script down." Michael rose back to full height. "Son," he said, voice low, not angry, not cold, just carved from truth older than rank. "You don't know enough yet to speak like that." The lieutenant bristled. "Don't call me son. You will address me as—" He stopped mid-sentence. Across the hallway, a senior officer graying at the temples, chest lined with the quiet authority of service, longer than most dreams, stood motionless. His eyes were pinned on the faded shoulder patch on Michael's jacket. Recognition hit him like distant thunder rolling across steel decks. "Harbor," the older officer breathed, barely audible. The lieutenant blinked. Harbor, who no answer came. "Not yet." The older man's expression was part disbelief, part reverence, like he was staring at a ghost who chose to stay human. Michael gave him a respectful nod, not of rank, but acknowledgement. Then he returned his gaze to the young officer, gentle but unyielding. "You don't have to understand today," Michael said quietly. "Just learn to treat every person with respect. The Navy doesn't just build warriors." He rested a hand on Lily's shoulder. "It builds character." Silence followed, not empty, expectant. Something had shifted in the air, subtle as a compass needle turning toward truth. The older officer pulled out his phone. "Get me Admiral Whitmore," he murmured, walking away, voice trembling. The lieutenant blinked, confusion giving way to a flicker of unease. "Admiral Whitmore." Michael squeezed Lily's hand gently. "Come on, sweetheart. Let's get back to your drawing." As they walked, Lily whispered, "Daddy." "Are you okay?" Michael smiled down at her eyes, carrying storms, and pieced together. "I am. You know why." "Why? Because I have you." He ruffled her hair. "And because real strength doesn't need to shout." Behind them, the headquarters continued, unaware that tides were shifting. Some storms didn't roar. Some just arrived and changed everything. The young lieutenant's indignation still lingered in the air as he stepped back, unsure whether he'd merely scolded a janitor or confronted a storm he didn't yet understand. The corridor resumed its pulse, but not quite the same tempo. Somewhere deep in the building, a call was being made, a name whispered like an echo over deep water. Harbor 6. That name would not remain sleeping much longer. Michael guided Lily back to the bench, settling her with her coloring pencils again. She leaned against him before sitting, seeking reassurance through contact. He rested a steady palm on her back, an anchor to calm small waves. "Daddy," she whispered, "was that man wrong?" He considered his words. The truth mattered, but so did how truth was shaped. "He was young," Michael answered softly. "And sometimes youth speaks before wisdom learns to listen." Lily wrinkled her nose. "But he was mean. He saw a mop and forgot there could be a story behind it." His gaze drifted, emotions measured and quiet. "Don't ever mistake uniforms or titles for worth, sweetheart. Respect isn't worn, it's lived." She nodded as if storing the word somewhere sacred. Michael resumed his work, his motions calm, deliberate, not retreating, not rattled, merely continuing the life he chose. But life has a way of reminding even the quietest souls that destiny never loses their number. It only waits its turn. Footsteps approached faster this time. The older officer reappeared, breath-tight composure intact only by military habit. He stopped a few feet away, straightened his uniform, and spoke with measured breath. "Sir," he began. Michael didn't flinch at the address, though he noticed the lieutenant nearby stiffen in confusion. "I made a call," the senior officer continued. "The Admiral is on her way." Michael's jaw tightened, not in fear, but in the quiet acceptance of tides turning. Lily looked up, confused by the shift. "What does that mean?" "Daddy." "That someone important is coming," he said gently. "Someone who knew me a long time ago." The lieutenant scoffed, not as confidently this time. All this over a janitor in an old flight jacket. The older officer shot him a look, a warning wrapped in disappointment. "Lieutenant, when an admiral responds personally, you'll want to listen before you speak." The young man's face flushed. Michael kept his voice level. There was no need to call her. There was the senior officer replied. "Some tides return whether we summon them or not." It was not meant as poetry, yet it sounded like it. And in the Navy, sometimes poetry was simply truth with salt on it. Minutes stretched like taut rope. Officers and sailors flowed through the hall, unaware that the air had shifted heavy with memory and respect, not yet spoken aloud. Michael continued wiping the floors. Routine steadiness, as if a storm gathering above the horizon meant nothing to a man who had weathered real storm walls. He breathed with the patience of waves, meeting shore again and again. Then chimes sounded clear, formal, signaling the arrival of flag leadership. Conversations paused. Backs straightened. Protocol whispered through posture. Down the corridor, a presence approached. Not loud, not rushed, but inevitable. Purpose walked in perfectly measured steps. Lily looked toward the sound eyes wide. "Who is it?" "Daddy." Before he could answer, the doors at the end of the hallway opened. A female officer stepped through, uniform immaculate, bearing unmistakable. Authority tempered with humanity. Power without arrogance. The kind of leader sailors whispered about with respect. Admiral Thomasina Tom Whitmore. Her gaze scanned the room, taking everything in with one sweep, the young lieutenant rigid with confused pride. The senior officer watching with reverent anticipation, the quiet janitor with his daughter beside him, small fingers still touching his sleeve. And then, her eyes found Michael. There was no shock, only recognition. Pain softened by time. Gratitude shaped by memory. A flicker of something unspoken, respect beyond rank. Loyalty beyond duty. She approached slowly, like someone crossing a deck she once knew by heart. The lieutenant straightened, practically vibrating with nervousness. "Admiral Whitmore, ma'am, She lifted one gloved hand, silencing him without even looking his way. Not cruelty, just priority. Gravity chose its focus. She stopped in front of Michael. The hall went silent. People who didn't even know what they were witnessing instinctively lowered their voices as if they stood before a memorial or a sacred moment. The Admiral spoke first, voice low but clear. "It's been a long time." Michael gave a respectful nod, not the crisp salute he once commanded, but the quiet greeting of equals in experience. "Yes," he replied. "It has." Her eyes softened. Something tender flickered and disappeared beneath command steel. "You kept your promise." "I did. And the world's a little better for it," she murmured. Lily looked between them, curiosity peeking out. Daddy Michael rested a hand on her shoulder. "Lily, this is Admiral Whitmore." Tom's expression warmed, a thin smile forming. "I've heard much about you, Lily Carter." Then she crouched down, slightly lowering herself to the girl's level. Not a gesture many admirals practiced. "Your father once kept a ship steady in a storm, where even God held his breath." Lily blinked, awe washing over her features. She looked up at her father, as if seeing an even larger truth than before. Michael's voice was steady. "We don't talk about that." Tom looked up at him, standing again. "No," she said softly. "You never have." Silence stretched again, not awkward, but full like the deep ocean before dawn. Finally, the Admiral turned slightly toward the lieutenant, fixing him with a gaze that held no anger, only clarity sharp enough to cut arrogance clean. "You questioned the wrong man today." The lieutenant swallowed hard. "Ma'am, I didn't know. You didn't ask," she corrected. "Which is worse," Michael interjected gently. "He's young. He'll learn." Tom nodded slowly, eyes never leaving his. "He will. Because today he met the man who taught me how to lead." A collective breath fell into the hallway. Even those who didn't understand the history felt the weight of it. Michael shifted his mop aside. For the first time, he looked not like a janitor at peace with humility, but like a commander who had chosen humility after conquering storms few could imagine. "Why are you here?" he asked quietly. Tom's voice lowered, touched with reverence. "Because when someone as great as you walks quietly, the Navy still feels the earth move." There was no pride in Michael's eyes, only memory, and love for the small hand gripping his. "Greatness is measured differently now," he replied. I have one harbor left to guard." Tom nodded, emotion flickering across steel composure. "And she is lucky." The tide had turned, but not toward glory or rank. Toward truth, the quiet kind that lived in duty, sacrifice and love carried in small hands. And somewhere deep in the base, whispers began to travel. Harbor 6 is here. The air in the corridor had shifted, as if the very walls recognized a forgotten command returning to life. Admiral Whitmore's presence wasn't loud, but it rippled subtle and absolute, turning whispers into reverent silence. The lieutenant's arrogance faltered into pale uncertainty. Lily's small fingers curled tighter around her father's hand, and Michael, steady as a lighthouse against the surge, simply stood. Respect was not demanded here. It arrived by instinct, like sailors rising to attention at the sound of ancient waves. A soft hum of conversation rolled like a tide farther down the hallway. Words spreading curious eyes, turning footsteps, slowing. But none intruded. They watched from respectful distance, sensing something sacred. Something not printed in manuals or taught in briefings, loyalty earned in storms no one else had seen. Admiral Whitmore studied Michael's face in a way that held years between them. Not rank to rank, not officer to civilian. Something deeper history bound in salt and sacrifice. "You look well," she said quietly. Michael offered a half smile. "Well enough." And Lily Tom's gaze drifted to the small girl voice, softening. "You are every inch your mother's light." Lily's eyes widened. No one told her that often. "You knew my mom." Tom nodded. "I did. She once braided my hair before a deployment because she said I needed to look less terrifying for a morale event." A gentle laugh escaped her, rare, unarmored. She always had grace in moments others feared. Michael's jaw softened. Memories didn't hit him. Like waves, they rose like tides. Constant, patient, inevitable. The lieutenant shifted awkwardly nearby. He seemed suddenly too large in his own uniform, as if the fabric itself questioned whether it belonged to him. Tom glanced at him only briefly. "Lieutenant, take this as your first leadership lesson." He stood rigid. "Ma'am, humility precedes command. A rank is not a shield for pride, only a call to serve." The lieutenant swallowed. "Yes, Admiral. And you'll apologize." He turned to Michael, throat tight. "Sir, I apologize for my conduct. I didn't show proper respect." Michael inclined his head, not victorious, just steady. "Learn from today, and you'll do well." The lieutenant nodded and stepped back. A young sailor witnessing the ocean for the first time, humbled, not drowned. Tom turned fully to Michael again. "Walk with me." Michael hesitated, glancing at Lily. Tom crouched again, voice gentle. "Would you like to come too, Lily? Or stay here and draw? I promise your father will still be right beside you." Lily squeezed Michael's hand. "I'll come." They walked slowly, deliberately. Michael didn't push his mop now. He didn't need a job to fill his hands. Memory filled them enough. Tom walked slightly ahead, but not commanding, inviting. As they passed the wall lined with photographs of past commanding officers, Lily paused, tugging Michael's sleeve. "Daddy," she whispered, pointing. "That's you." There he was, Michael Carter, Navy Captain 06, formal portrait, crisp and precise. Younger, sharper jawline, eyes like steel under northern skies. The plaque read, "Captain Michael Harbor, 6, Carter Strategic Fleet Command, Pacific Division." A few sailors nearby froze mid-conversation. A petty officer whispered, "That's him." Another removed his cap instinctively. The room seemed to breathe differently, deeper, slower. Michael exhaled softly. That was another lifetime. Tom's voice floated beside him. "No. Same life. Different chapter." He did not argue. He merely kept walking. They reached a private glass alcove overlooking the harbor. Waves shimmered. sunlight drawing silver roads across water. Lily pressed her fingertips to the glass, enchanted. Michael looked out too, the sea calling not with command, but memory. "You didn't answer my question," Tom said gently. "Why the mop instead of medals? Why disappear?" Michael's shoulders rose and fell slowly. The truth was simple, but heavy. "Sarah," he said. "She needed me. Lily needed me more." Tom swallowed. The weight of that choice, love over legacy, landed not with guilt, but awe. "You gave up everything." Michael shook his head. "I kept my promise. That wasn't giving up." Tom looked away, briefly blinking against the burn of something raw. "You once told me leadership was knowing when to step forward. I didn't understand then that sometimes it means stepping back." Michael's voice was low, carved from tide-worn stone. "Duty changes shape. The ocean teaches that currents shift, but purpose remains." Silence followed, not empty. Full, respectful, shared. Harbor 6. Tom whispered not his rank, but his reverence. "We could use you again." Michael shook his head. "My command is right here." He nodded toward Lily, who was now making tiny boat noises against the window. Tom smiled, painful and proud. "And you're right." Lily returned, tugging Tom's sleeve. Admiral Lady Tom chuckled softly at the title. "Yes, sweetheart. Was my daddy really the bravest?" Tom knelt again, face level with a child's earnest wonder. "I've seen men face storms, bullets, and oceans. But bravery," she looked up at Michael, voice tender. "Bravery is choosing love over glory. And your father has always been the bravest person I know." Lily leaned into Michael, her small voice certain. "I always knew." Michael held her quietly, his eyes turning seaward again. Waves rolled, comforting, constant. The world moved forward, but fatherhood had become his greatest vessel. Tom rose. "There will be questions," she murmured. "Whispers. Rumors. You understand what waking your name will do here?" Michael nodded. "Let them speak. Wind blows. Tide changes. I remain where I'm needed." Tom's voice lowered to a soft vow. "And if the Navy ever needs its harbor again," Michael met her gaze, calm as deep water. "Then I'll answer when Lily can spare me." A small laugh broke her composure. "Fair bargain." She touched his arm just briefly, an unspoken salute, richer than protocol. "Welcome home, Captain," she whispered. Michael didn't correct her. Some truths didn't need ceremony. As Tom turned to leave, sailors stepped aside instinctively. But this time, their eyes slid toward Michael, not curious, not confused. Respect blossomed quietly like flags rising without command. Lily tugged his sleeve again, voice filled with awe. "Daddy, they're looking at you." Michael smiled, gentle and solemn. "Sometimes people remember ships that once guided them to safe waters. And you guided them." He kissed the top of her head. "I guide you now. That's enough." Yet the hallway felt different. The air knew. The building remembered. And somewhere deep in the base, a ripple moved, carrying a name across decks and screens and whispered corridors. Harbor 6. The quiet janitor had not returned. The guardian had always been here. As Admiral Whitmore walked away, the corridor gradually exhaled. Whispers rose, respectful and restrained, like sailors speaking in church. Michael returned to his cleaning cart, not because he had to, but because purpose was often quieter than ceremony. Lily held his hand, head high with a pride she didn't yet have the vocabulary to name. But reverence carried its own ripples. Soon, the quiet truth would reach every office, every heart that once sailed under command of the man now holding a mop. For now, the world held still. Then came the tremor. A command master chief, broad-shouldered, seasoned skin eyes like storms survived, approached Michael with measured steps. He didn't salute, but his posture was the salute. "Sir," he said, voice steady but reverent permission to speak freely. Michael sighed gentle amusement, reluctant acceptance. "You never needed permission to do the right thing, Chief." The chief swallowed. "I knew it. I knew it was you." He turned to Lily, voice softening. "Young lady, your father once got 4 ships through a Category 4 typhoon without losing a single soul." Lily's eyes widened. 4 ships. That's 1, 2, 3, 4. She counted proudly on her fingers. Michael shook his head. "Storms move. Crew fights. I just held the wheel." The chief's jaw tightened. "You held the heavens, sir." Michael gave a soft look that asked him kindly to let humility have its space. The chief understood. But reverence doesn't dissolve, it recedes slowly. The young lieutenant was still nearby now. Pale posture, stiff eyes darting like he was recalibrating the world. He approached, voice thinner. "Captain Carter, sir. If I may." Michael nodded once. "Speak." "I didn't know." His voice cracked slightly. "I thought you thought rank defined worth," Michael finished gently. "Many do. That's why humility isn't weakness, it's discipline." The lieutenant looked down. "I'm sorry, sir." Michael placed a steady hand on the young man's shoulder. "Earn your apologies through conduct. Lift others, and you'll command men who follow because they trust you, not because they fear you." It was not a speech. It was a compass placed in trembling hands. The lieutenant nodded like someone who had just found a lighthouse after drifting too long. More footsteps. This time, formal, purposeful. Admiral Whitmore returned not alone. Beside her walked 2 senior officers carrying a sealed leather folio. Not ceremony. Testimony. Tom spoke so only Michael could hear. "They need to hear it," she said. "To understand why humility isn't your weakness, but your proof." Michael hesitated. He never told stories for glory. Stories belonged to the men and women who lived them with him. But some truths build others. And this Navy, this generation, could learn something greater than strategy. He nodded once. Tom opened the folio, extracting a printed briefing sheet. It wasn't written like a legend. It was written like a report, because it had been one. Evidence never needed embellishment. She handed it to the lieutenant. Read it. His voice shook. "Operation Northern Gale, Pacific Fleet Escort, Cyclone Response Year 20XX, Lid Vessel USS Anchorage, Commanding Officer Captain Michael Carter. Call sign Harbor 6. He swallowed. Forecast underestimated storm strength. Projected wave height exceeded structural tolerance thresholds. Michael's hand rested gently on Lily's shoulder. Tom continued quietly. He didn't turn back. The lieutenant read on, voice steadying. Captain Carter executed an unorthodox cross-current thrust maneuver and real-time course correction. Led 4 vessels through uncharted cyclone pressure walls. Saved 312 crew and civilian relief personnel. Casualties 0. Silence fell like prayer. The chief murmured, voice thick. "I remember that storm. We thought the sea swallowed a fleet that day." Tom looked to Michael. "They don't teach courage like that. They witness it." Lily turned to her father, eyes huge. "You saved all those people," Michael met her gaze, gentle. "We saved each other. No one survives storms alone at sea or in life." Tom's voice softened. "You refused your Silver Star." Michael breathed in deeply. "Awards don't raise a daughter." Tom nodded. "And you refused promotion to flag track. I had a promise to keep," he said simply. "A greater post to fill." He looked at Lily. Her smile was small, trembling proud, in a way pure hearts are. The lieutenant spoke again, quiet, humbled. "Captain, I hope one day I can carry even a fraction of that honor." Michael nodded. "Not by chasing glory, by serving with love." The lieutenant bowed his head. Tom exhaled as though releasing a burden long held. "You taught me that leadership isn't power," she said softly. "It's stewardship." She paused. "I owe much of who I am to what I learned under your command." Michael's voice deepened fatherly. "Captain humble all at once. Then teach them better than I did. Lead them where they need to go, not where pride shouts." Tom nodded, emotion flickering behind composure. "Always." Lily tugged Michael's sleeve. "Daddy." "Yes, sweetheart." Her voice was a whisper. "The ocean was really scary, wasn't it?" Michael smiled gently. "Sometimes. But love gave me strength bigger than fear." She rested her head against him, satisfied by the truth. Tom watched the seeing eyes soft. She had commanded fleets, negotiated adversaries, and stood before Congress, but this moment humbled her more than any battle ever had. "Michael," she said softly, "men like you don't disappear. They become foundations others stand on." Michael's gaze returned to the mop, to the quiet duty he chose. "I became a harbor," he said. "Every sailor needs one." Tom whispered, "And so does every nation." Word travels fast in places where honor still matters. By day's end, no one looked at the janitor the same. Not because they worshipped him, because they learned what humility looks like when worn by greatness. Lily swung his hand as they walked to the exit. "Daddy," she said, "can we go get ice cream?" Michael smiled. "That's the best mission I've had all day." Tom watched them go, hands clasped behind her back, the ocean reflecting in her eyes. Some legends do not march. They walk quietly with a child's hand in theirs. And the Navy, every deck, every soul who served, felt the horizon shift. Harbor 6 had chosen peace, and in doing so, reminded them what true command looked like. By the time the sun dipped toward the horizon, whispers of the morning had woven themselves through every corner of Navy HQ. Officers exchanged knowing glances, chiefs talked in hushed tones, and even the youngest sailors stood a little straighter. Not because a forgotten captain had returned in glory, but because greatness had stood quietly among them and reminded them what honor looked like. Yet long before accolades, before storms and steel decks, there had been a promise made not to an admiral or a flag, but to a whispering voice in a quiet hospital room. Now, as Michael walked Lily home beneath a sky bruised by dusk, memory called him back to the night everything changed. The hospital smelled of antiseptic and soft sorrow. Machines hummed their mechanical lullaby, steady but indifferent. Outside, the world moved with its usual indifference, cars rolling waves lapping a nation resting under stars. Inside this room, a universe was preparing to shift. Sarah Carter lay propped against thin pillows, her skin pale, her hair once wind-tangled and bright with life, now fragile as sea foam. But her eyes, even tired, still held the warmth that once steadied Michael in storms fiercer than any typhoon. Michael sat at her bedside, his uniform jacket draped over the chair, rank insignia gleaming collar stiff. Duty had always sat across his shoulders like a mantle. Tonight it pressed like a weight. Sarah's hand trembled as she reached for his. He caught it gently, as if afraid she might slip away faster if he blinked. "You're doing that look again," she whispered, voice thin but teasing the one where you think you can stop time by staring hard enough. "Maybe I can." He tried to smile. "Never been tested." She gave a soft laugh, weak but real. "Michael, we always knew the ocean gives and takes." His jaw clenched. "I've fought storms stronger than this." "No," she whispered, eyes softening. "You've sailed through storms. But this one you must accept." A silence fell. It was the kind that stretched between souls who had shared more than laughter, and years who had built a life, created a child, dreamed under the same stars. She glanced at the crib where infant Lily slept, tiny breaths, rising like hope on calm seas. She needs you. She needs us, he whispered, voice raw. Sarah's gaze softened. And she will always have me. Just not in the way we hoped. She touched his face, fingers feather light. You have spent your life saving others, saving fleets, steering through chaos, but the greatest mission starts now. He swallowed. I don't know how to do this. You do. Her voice, though weak, held conviction. You lead through storms because you love. And now your command changes. Her breath grew heavy, but her resolve did not. Don't be a hero for the world, Michael. Tears slipped down her cheek. Be a harbor for our daughter. The room dimmed. The machines continued their steady hum. His throat tightened. Rage, grief, helplessness swirling like violent currents beneath a deceptively calm surface. I can't lose you. You're not losing me. She smiled, small, honest, brave. I'm giving you Lily. A tear escaped him despite discipline forged in steel and salt. She brushed it away with frail fingers. When she takes her first steps, I'll be there. When she learns to read, I'll be there. When she cries, when she laughs, when she scrapes her knees, when she asks about the stars. Her breath hitched. But she needs someone to hold her, to teach her, to stay. That's you, Michael. It was then he understood. Duty was no longer an oath to a flag. It was a vow to a life, to a soul he had helped bring into the world, to a little girl who would look to him not for medals, but for morning pancakes, soft lullabies, and steady love. I promise, he whispered, voice, breaking like surf against rock. I'll choose her. Always. Her smile softened. Then I can rest. He pressed his forehead to hers. You're not leaving. You're sailing ahead. Only so I can wait on calmer shores, she breathed. And one day, you and Lily will come home too. A single tear fell from her lashes. Then another. Michael held her hand until it grew still, and warm, then still and cool. The machine's hum did not change, but his world did. He didn't salute when the moment came. Some goodbyes require no protocol, only love, only the weight of a promise. The next morning he placed his uniform in a cedar box, folded with reverence, not discarded, preserved, not forgotten, honored. He kissed his daughter's forehead and whispered to the quiet dawn, for you, Lily, for her. And Michael Carter, Captain 06, Harbor 6, hero of storms and protector of fleets, chose to become a janitor, chose small hands over salutes, chose a promise over glory. Back in the present, Michael pressed the elevator button in HQ. Lily, resting against his leg, sleepy and content after their day. She looked up. Daddy, why did you leave the ships? He kneels, brushing a curl from her forehead, voice soft and steady. So I could be here every time you needed me, he said. And because some promises, his voice thickened with the memory, are bigger than oceans. Lily smiled, hugging him fiercely. I like our promise. Above them, officers passed with newfound respect. Some saluted quietly, not expecting a return. They didn't need it. A salute is not always hand to brow. Sometimes it's a grateful glance, a softened voice, a changed heart. Michael lifted Lily into his arms, her head resting on his shoulder. The hallway light spilled around them, framing not a former captain, but something greater in its simplicity. A father who kept his word. A sailor who chose love over command. A harbor who sheltered one small soul with the strength of a fleet. And as he walked toward the exit, the weight on his shoulders did not burden him. It steadied him. It reminded him of the night he traded stars on his collar for stars in his daughter's eyes. Some storms claim men, but some promises save them. The memory of Sarah's touch still lingered like a warm ember in Michael's chest as he stepped back into the present. The ache remained a soft and constant tide that never fully ebbed, but in Lily's arms around his neck, in her quiet breathing against his shoulder, he found the strength Sarah always believed in. He walked the halls of Navy HQ, no longer burdened by what he had left behind, but anchored firmly in what he now protected. Yet fate, respectful of promises, but never blind to purpose, was not finished with Harbor 6. The next morning, Michael and Lily arrived before the bustle peaked. Dawn had just brushed gold across the windows when a shadow approached at the security checkpoint. Admiral Whitmore again. But today her presence wasn't a quiet ripple. It carried intention. Purpose sharpened not by urgency but by deep respect. "Captain Carter," she greeted, voice steady. Lily beamed. "Hi, Admiral." Lady Tom smiled softly. "Good morning, Lily." Michael nodded, measured and polite. "Admiral." Wordlessly, she held out an envelope, heavy official embossed with the Navy crest. Michael didn't take it. He looked at it as one would a folded flag weight far deeper than paper. "What's this?" he asked quietly. "A formal offer," Tom replied. "Consulting position. No uniform. No orders. Your hours. Your terms. We need your mind." Her eyes held sincerity, not persuasion. "You would save lives from a conference table instead of a bridge." Michael's gaze drifted briefly to Lily, now examining a framed photo on the wall, heroic sailors in blue and gold. She tried to mimic their salutes with tiny fingers. He sighed. "Tom." "I know," she interrupted gently. "Your promise." She didn't speak as a commander. She spoke as someone who once looked up to him not for rank, but for truth. "You are still the finest strategic mind this Navy has produced in 2 decades, she continued. "Your experience, your instincts are irreplaceable." Michael's grip on the mop tightened. "And my daughter is irreplaceable to me." Tom nodded without resistance. "I'm not asking you to choose. I'm offering you both." She paused. "Bring her. Sit in on briefings. Speak when you want. Leave when you must. Be present without sacrificing presence." It was not temptation. It was trust, dressed in opportunity. Michael exhaled slowly. "I appreciate it. Truly. But I didn't step away because I lacked roles. I stepped away because she nodded toward Lily, needed a father more than the Navy needed a captain." Tom's eyes softened. "And now she has one, stronger, than most children ever know." She paused, her voice dropping. "Let me help you keep the world she grows up in safe, too." Silence settled, not heavy, thoughtful. Finally, Michael shook his head, gentle but firm. "I can't accept. Not now." Tom didn't argue. She simply tucked the envelope under his cleaning cart handle like a respectful offering. "I'll leave it here. Read it someday. Or not. Either choice honors you." Her restraint carried more respect than insistence ever could. They walked together down the corridor, Lily skipping ahead. "Do you miss it?" Tom asked softly. Michael considered his answer carefully. "I miss the sea's honesty." "And command," he gave a faint smile. "Command was never mine. It was a loan from those willing to follow." Tom exhaled a sound of admiration shaded by melancholy. "You once told me leadership wasn't about being followed. It was about being worth following." He chuckled softly. "Did I say that you did? And I built my entire command philosophy on it." He shook his head, humbled. "Then you carried it further than I ever could." A group of young sailors passed. This time they didn't avert their gaze out of ignorance. They nodded almost shy, as if greeting a monument not carved in stone, but in humility. One whispered, "Morning, Sir Carter." Michael didn't flinch or correct the title. He simply offered a calm nod. Respect didn't need denial, it needed grounding. They reached a sunlit break lounge. Tom gestured. "Coffee." Michael hesitated. Lily tugged his pant leg. "Daddy, they have chocolate milk here." He smiled. "Then it seems we're staying." They entered. Officers shifted, making space, not because protocol demanded it, but because hearts did. A seat opened. Michael guided Lily into it, wiping crumbs first with quiet habit. Tom sat opposite, posture impeccable, even in casual company. A young ensign approached, nervous. "Sir Admiral, may I say something?" Michael motioned for him to continue. "My father served under you in the Pacific," the ensign said, voice earnest. "He always said there were captains who commanded ships, and one who commanded hearts." The ensign swallowed emotion. "He credits you for bringing him home." Michael's gaze softened. "Your father brought himself home. Every sailor steers their own soul." The ensign nodded, eyes glistening, then stepped away quietly, more grounded than when he arrived. Tom watched Michael sip his coffee, a weight in her gaze, only visible to those who had known war and peace intimately. "You could reshape the Navy again," she murmured, not pushing, just acknowledging truth. Michael looked at Lily. Brown hair-dotted shoes, chocolate milk mustache. Pure future. "I already am," he whispered. Tom's eyes warmed. "You're right. But if ever the seas rise again—" She paused. "Don't let your compass gather dust," Michael chuckled. "It won't. Lighthouses don't forget how to shine. They just choose when to." Her expression answered not with a smile, but with something deeper. Respect. Gratitude. And perhaps a longing for the steadiness he embodied. When they finished, Lily slipped her hand into Michael's, sticky from milk and innocence. Tom rose, first offering a small bow, not military, but personal. "Until the tide calls again." Until then, Michael replied. As she walked away, her shoulders were straighter, her step more grounded, not because she regained her mentor, but because she had seen proof that leadership can retire without fading. Michael turned to Lily. "Ready to go home?" She nodded vigorously. "Can we make pancakes?" He smiled. "Extra blueberries." Outside the window, the harbor waves rolled steady, patient, ancient. Some storms break captains. Some forge harbors. Michael Carter had become the latter. And the Navy, without asking, stood a little taller in his wake. Leaving the lounge, Michael felt the familiar weight of the world lighten as Lily swung their joined hands with the rhythm of a childhood untouched by rank medals or command meetings. Admirals and officers saluted quietly behind them, not out of obligation, but reverence. Yet once they exited into the crisp air, leaving the hum of Navy HQ behind, Michael's shoulders eased. Out here, he wasn't Harbor 6 or Captain Carter. He was just Lily's dad. And sometimes that was the highest rank a man could hold. The next day, a soft autumn sun greeted the base, painting the steel railings, gold and warming concrete, like memory-warming bone. Autumn always stirred something inside Michael, reflection, humility, and a quiet ache for things lost and found. He arrived at the same time Lily perched on the seat of his cleaning cart, as if it were a royal carriage. She waved imperially to passing sailors. Some saluted back with exaggerated seriousness, delighting her. Daddy Lily whispered conspiratorially, "I think I'm famous now." Michael chuckled. "Fame is just more people looking. It doesn't change who you are." Lily nodded solemnly, then immediately resumed waving like a parade queen. "But it's fun?" It was. As Michael unlocked a janitor's closet, a hesitant voice approached. "Captain, Mr. Carter." Michael turned to find the young lieutenant from before. His uniform neat, but humility was now the sharpest thing about him. The lieutenant cleared his throat. "Permission to, ask for guidance." Michael rested his mop against the wall. "Permission granted. The young officer swallowed. I behaved poorly. I disgraced the uniform. Could you? His voice thinned. Help me learn, so I don't fail this Navy or myself. Not arrogance, not shame, growth. Michael studied him, not judging, but measuring sincerity. Then he nodded once. Lunch, you and me. The lieutenant blinked. Sir. No lectures in hallways, Michael said calmly. Lessons are best learned in light, not confrontation. They met later in the cafeteria. Michael didn't choose a corner booth or private room. He sat in a sunlit area near the windows, where ordinary sailors chatted, laughed, and traded anecdotes of drills and distant ports. Lily sat beside him with crayons, drawing a battleship shaped suspiciously like a unicorn. The lieutenant arrived stiff, but determined. Sit, Michael said, gesturing to the chair across from him. The lieutenant obeyed instantly. Michael didn't speak at first. He ate slowly, like a man who had learned long ago that silence can draw out truth better than interrogation. Finally, he began. Why did you join the Navy? The lieutenant straightened. To serve, to protect, to make a difference. All noble reasons, Michael said. But why you? The young man hesitated. Then softly. My father never believed in me. I wanted to prove him wrong. Michael nodded. A ship launched in anger still sails. But storms hit harder when fueled by wounds. The lieutenant's voice lowered. I thought rank meant worth. A common mistake, Michael replied. Uniforms show responsibility. Character shows value. The lieutenant's shoulders sagged, not defeated, unburdened. How do I lead like you? Michael smiled gently. Start by learning to follow with humility. Lead only once you can serve without ego. He gestured around them, sailors laughing, a petty officer dropping his sandwich, Lily giggling at her drawing. Leadership isn't the voice that commands, Michael continued. It's the quiet example people choose to respect. The lieutenant absorbed every word, a student at the feet of truth. I will do better, he whispered. I believe you will, Michael replied. And belief is earned. Every day. Then Michael extended his hand. The lieutenant clasped it firmly, grateful, not grateful to be seen, but grateful to be better. No medals exchanged, no witnesses required, but a young officer walked away taller, not in pride, but in purpose. After lunch, Michael stood from the table. Come on, Lily, she popped up. We teaching more people today, Michael laughed softly. Maybe. But first we clean. As they moved down the hall, the young lieutenant, now in formation with purpose instead of ego, ushered junior sailors aside, not out of hierarchy, but respect. One sailor whispered, That janitor's something else. The lieutenant answered, He's the standard. Michael heard. He said nothing. Teaching was not loud work. It was lived work. Later in the quiet of the corridor, Lily tugged Michael's shirt. Daddy, she asked, what's the difference between stars on a uniform and stars in the sky? He paused, kneeling so their eyes met. Uniform stars are earned by leading ships, he said softly. Sky stars are earned by guiding hearts. Lily's eyes shone like dawn. Which one are you? Michael tapped her chest gently. I think I'm the kind that helps one small star find her way. She hugged him fiercely. I'm your star. You're my whole sky. Tom passed down the corridor, then quiet and observant. She saw the lieutenant, posture transformed. She saw sailors greet Michael with nods, meant for legends. And she saw Lily's arms around her father's neck, absorbing the warmth of a man who chose presence over prestige. She approached. You're shaping them still, she murmured. Michael shrugged lightly. One sailor at a time. The Navy trains warriors, Tom said, voice thoughtful. But you raise leaders. Michael didn't answer. He didn't need to. Tom gave Lily a gentle salute. "Carry on, Miss Carter." Lily saluted back crookedly. "Aye, aye, Admiral lady." Tom laughed a sound rare and true before walking on, as the sun dipped again on the horizon, light catching the harbor waves beyond the windows. The Navy base breathed a little easier. Not because a captain returned, but because humility had become contagious. In the cafeteria, someone pinned a note on the bulletin board. Anonymous, true rank is not worn on shoulders, but carried in actions. Underneath, someone else scribbled, Harbor 6. Michael never saw it. He didn't need recognition. He swept floors that afternoon with quiet contentment. Because greatness doesn't demand applause. It teaches. It lifts. It gives others stars to follow. And somewhere deep in the base, hearts shifted ever so slightly toward grace. By the end of the week, the lieutenant walked the halls, a different man. Junior sailors whispered about humility rather than rank, and even hardened chiefs found themselves nodding with newfound respect when Michael passed. Yet for all the quiet ripple he'd stirred across Navy HQ, Michael's compass still pointed not toward command or fame, but home. And home for a sailor was always somewhere between the sea and the heart. Saturday morning arrived crisp and clear, a breeze rolling off the coast with the faint scent of salt and memory. It was the kind of morning sailors knew by instinct. Gentle skies, calm tide, wind, speaking a language older than ships. Lily skipped beside Michael as they walked toward the harbor, a paper bag of crumbs and wildflowers in her small hands. Their weekend ritual, their quiet pilgrimage. "Daddy," she chirped, "can we see the ships again today? And the big waves, and the seals, if they're not sleeping?" Michael smiled. "We can see everything the ocean chooses to share." Lily scrunched her face thoughtfully. "Do you think Mama sees the ocean too?" Michael's steps slowed a pause, as subtle as breath, yet heavy as anchor chain. "Yes," he murmured. "Your mother loved the sea more than most sailors. I think the waves carry her voice." Lily nodded solemnly, as if this made perfect sense. "So when the water sparkles," she's saying, Michael looked to the horizon, sunlight dancing on water like scattered blessings. "Yes, I believe she is." They reached the pier, wooden planks, warmed by sun and softened by years of salt and footsteps. A Navy destroyer docked nearby, ghost gray hull, rising proud, and still American flags snapping crisply overhead. A sailor on morning watch spotted Michael and froze, not because protocol demanded attention, but because reverence did. Michael offered him a quiet nod. No salute needed, no rank required. He took a seat at the pier's edge, boots dangling just above the water. Lily sat beside him, her legs shorter, sneakers swinging gleefully. "Remember what Mommy used to say?" Lily asked, placing a daisy on her lap like a sacred offering. "That the ocean is God's heartbeat." Michael's chest tightened. "I remember." He could almost hear Sarah's voice, warm, light, teasing like sunlight on calm seas. "Michael, promise me you won't let the world turn you into stone. Even sailors need soft places." Daddy, Lily whispered, "Tell me again about Mommy." Not the sad part. The brave part. Michael inhaled gently as though breathing in her memory. "Your mom was the bravest person I ever knew. Not because she fought storms, but because she smiled through them." Lily leaned onto his side. "I miss her, even though I don't remember a lot." "You remember the important things," he said. "Love leaves echoes deeper than memory." She considered this, eyes squinting like she was learning the map of her own heart. Almost on cue, the water below rippled softly. Lily gasped. She said, "Hi, Michael." Chuckled, brushing a hand across her small back. Seems like she did. For a long moment they sat in comfortable silence, the kind shared by souls stitched together by love and loss. Seagulls wheeled overhead, and somewhere nearby, a sailor practiced a bugle call, slow and imperfect, but honest. Lily reached into the paper bag and produced a handful of wildflowers, daisies, bluebells, and a single tiny rose she had insisted on picking that morning. "Can we give Mama her flowers now?" "Yes, sweetheart." One by one, they dropped petals onto the gentle tide. They floated, drifting outward, like small prayers set free. Lily whispered, "For Mama who loved the sea," Michael added quietly, "and who taught me how to love the shore." A single tear rolled down his cheek, caught by the breeze before it could fall. Lily noticed and wiped the trail with her thumb. "It's okay to cry, Daddy," she whispered. "Grandma says sailors cry into the ocean so no one can see." He chuckled softly. "Your grandmother always had poetry in her bones." "I have it too," Lily declared proudly. "Want to hear my poem? I'd love to." Lily puffed up importantly and recited, "Mommy's waves are soft and bright. Daddy's stars shine every night. I am the sunshine in between. Our family is a submarine." Michael laughed a sound warm enough to rival the sun. "That's beautiful. And also we go underwater. But we don't sink," she added matter-of-factly. A vital detail, he nodded. Footsteps approached. Michael turned to see the Command Master Chief, hands behind his back, eyes softer than usual. "Permission to join you, sir?" the chief asked. "You're off duty, Chief. Permission's not needed." The chief sat with a respectful gap. "Brought something." He handed Lily a small wooden carving of a ship, hand-whittled initials SC burned into the side. "Found it in storage," the chief said quietly. "Your mother gave it to my wife when Lily was born. Said your daughter would be captain of her own dreams one day." Lily cradled it like treasure. "It's beautiful. Thank you." Michael's throat tightened, gratitude tangled with surprise. "Thank you, Chief." The older man nodded. "We don't forget the ones who hold us steady. Winds change. Seas don't lie." He stood tapping 2 fingers to his brow, a gesture not of rank, but respect, and left. Lily whispered, "He's nice. He served with a full heart," Michael said. "The Navy remembers people like that. And people like you," Lily added. Michael shook his head gently. "No, Lily. It remembers kindness. I just followed its call." A breeze rolled across the pier, salt kissing the air. Lily pressed her face to his shoulder. "Daddy, yes. When I grow up, do I have to be brave too?" Michael wrapped his arm around her, holding her like something sacred. "You already are," he whispered. "Being gentle in a world that's loud, that's the bravest thing of all." She closed her eyes, smiling. For a while they sat in silence, petals floating farther from shore, carried by currents that remembered every sailor, every sacrifice, every promise ever whispered to the sea. And somewhere deep inside Michael's heart, beneath storms, survived, beneath orders given and relinquished, there was a stillness rising like dawn. He had left the Navy for love. He had stayed away by conviction. But love, memory, and honor were all currents of the same ocean. And the ocean was stirring again. The last petals drifted away, carried by a gentle tide, as if the ocean itself promised to hold them safe. Michael and Lily lingered at the pier a few breaths longer, letting gratitude sharp and tender wrap around them like sea air. Loss had not hardened him. It had deepened him. And as they walked back toward the base, Lily skipping with the lightness only children know, Michael's steps carried something quieter, but equally powerful. Some storms pass, some moments anchor, and some memories steer us forward more surely than any compass. Monday morning. Navy HQ. The hum of duty vibrated through the halls once more, boots striking polished floors, clipped radio chatter badges flashing under fluorescent light. But something had changed in the air since that week, when the Admiral walked in and froze the room. Respect had shifted. Not loud, not mandated, but real. Michael guided his mop down a corridor when a familiar voice spoke from behind him. Captain Carter. Tom. She wasn't alone. Beside her stood a civilian director, mid-50s, silver hair, sharp eyes softened by sincerity. His badge read, Director Samuel Rhodes, Veteran Mentorship Initiative. Michael straightened, but not in salute, simply in acknowledgement. Admiral. Director. Rhodes extended a hand. Sir, it's an honor. I've heard more about you in 3 days than I have about most active duty flag officers in 3 years. Michael shook his hand with humility. Titles don't mean much in this uniform. Rhodes smiled. On the contrary, they mean more. Tom nodded. We're launching a mentorship program for junior officers and transitioning service members. Rhodes leads it. He insists you're the cornerstone. Michael raised a brow. Cornerstone? I mop floors. Rhodes shook his head. You built fleets. Now we're asking you to help build futures. Michael paused. He could feel Lily watching him from her coloring corner legs, swinging under a bench, crayons scattered like little flags. Tom continued gently. This base is full of young men and women trying to learn strength, purpose, humility. Her eyes softened. They've watched you live it. Michael exhaled slowly. I'm not returning to command. We're not asking that, Rhodes replied. We're asking for presence. Michael looked down at his mop, at his daughter's tiny backpack, and then at the officers passing by, some saluting him quietly without expecting acknowledgement, some offering shy smiles, all walking straighter because they had seen what dignity looked like when worn without rank. Finally, he nodded. I'll volunteer. On my terms, when Lily's in class or with me. Tom smiled, not triumphant, but relieved. The Navy never wanted you back in uniform, just back in spirit. Lily ran over and tugged his sleeve. Daddy's spirit is very big. Rhodes crouched to her level. It is, which means a lot of sailors will stand taller. Lily considered this with grave seriousness. Okay, but he has to be home for pancakes. Rhodes laughed. Deal. Later that afternoon, Michael walked into a modest conference room. No medals on the walls, just charts, whiteboards, and freshly brewed coffee. The young lieutenant sat among others, ensigns, petty officers preparing to transition to civilian life. 2 Marines and a Coast Guard officer, who looked both curious and skeptical. When Michael entered, silence rippled. He didn't stand at the head of the table. He sat among them. I'm here as Michael, he began. Not as a captain. Not as Harbor 6. A few exchanged glances. He saw recognition, awe-doubt, all swirling like currents. What I learned at sea wasn't in manuals. He paused. It was in people. He folded his weathered hands. You don't lead because you have rank. You lead because someone trusts you with their hope. That silence again, the one where hearts lean forward. A Marine sergeant cleared his throat. Sir, how did you know when it was time to leave? Command, Michael's answer was quiet. When the most important battle wasn't out there, he gestured to imaginary oceans, but here. He tapped his chest gently. And here. He nodded toward where Lily played in the hallway, supervised by a kind-eyed petty officer. Family changes missions. The young lieutenant spoke next. Sir, have you ever regretted leaving? Michael looked at his hands, hands that once gripped a ship's wheel through walls of water, now holding a simple life with reverence. No, because purpose isn't lost. When roles change, it grows. A soft murmur spread, shoulders eased. Someone breathed deeper. A truth was landing. Service is not only in command, he continued. Sometimes service is showing a child the world, Sometimes it's guiding one young officer instead of a fleet. He didn't preach. He lived the words as he spoke them. A Coast Guard officer, eyes glimmering, asked, "What do we do when the uniform comes off? Who are we then?" Michael's voice softened to a near whisper. "You become who you were always meant to be. The uniform doesn't build you, it reveals you." Heads nodded slowly. Quiet understanding took root. It wasn't a briefing. It was a harbor. After the session, the young lieutenant stayed behind. "Sir, thank you. Yesterday, I wanted to be someone important. Today, I want to be someone worthy." Michael rested a hand on his shoulder. "That's the first sign you already are." When the room emptied, Tom stepped in silent. Observer turned quiet. Witness. "You didn't lecture," she said. "No." "You didn't command." "No, you just were." Michael smiled faintly. "Sometimes being is the lesson." She looked at him as if seeing an old constellation realign. "Your life didn't leave the Navy," she whispered. "It taught us what the Navy is meant to be." He shook his head humbly. "I only kept a promise." Tom nodded. "And somehow, you kept shaping us too." As evening fell, Michael and Lily walked home under a sky painted gold and navy blue. Lily held a paper star the officers had given her, with words scribbled inside, "For the girl who reminds us why we serve." She beamed. "Daddy, they made me an Admiral star." Michael lifted her into his arms. "No, sweetheart. You're something bigger." What she asked. "My lighthouse." She giggled. "Does that mean I have to blink a lot?" "Only when sailors are lost," he murmured. "And they'll find their way." The wind carried sea salt and memory brushing past them with a promise. Harbors don't stop storms. They give sailors strength to face them. And now the Navy had a harbor again. Not in a command center, but in a janitor's steady hands and a child's bright heart. The mentorship program continued quietly without fanfare. Young officers came with stiff postures and left with gentler eyes. Marines who once measured strength only in push-ups and fire belts learned that stillness could be power too. The Navy did not announce Harbor 6 had returned, but something in the walls felt steadier, as if an old keel had been set beneath the building again. And yet, even lighthouses, shining brightest, know when to dim, guiding one last ship home, before resting in the comfort of calm shores. A crisp Friday morning arrived. The sky stretched clear and wide, the kind of blue sailors trust, without question. Michael walked the hallway pushing his mop cart, Lily humming beside him, her backpack bouncing rhythmically. It was like any other day, and yet, not quite. At the entrance of the mentorship room, the young lieutenant from weeks ago stood waiting. His posture was different now, not rigid, not nervous, settled. He saluted once short and sincere. "Thank you," he said simply. No dramatic farewell, no ceremony. Growth rarely demands applause. Michael nodded in return, his pride quiet, but real. They continued down the hallway. Lily hopped on one foot, then the other, like each tile was a stepping stone across a secret ocean. She paused suddenly. "Daddy," she asked. "Yes, Lily." "Do you think Mommy saw the stars I made for the Navy?" Michael knelt and brushed her cheek. "I think she sees everything you shine." Lily smiled, satisfied, the kind of smile that heals. They rounded a corner, and there she stood. Admiral Thomasina Whitmore, not in her formal coat, but in a simple service sweater, hair pinned back with practicality instead of formality. She looked less like the highest flag officer in the building and more like a woman at ease, though the strength beneath it remained. Heading out, she asked. "End of shift," Michael replied. "Pancakes are calling." Lily nodded solemnly. "Extra blueberries." Tom smiled. A fine mission. For a heartbeat, they simply stood there. 3 lives tied not by duty, but by something deeper. Shared storms, shared losses, shared reverence. Michael Tom said softly, "You've given us something rare." You reminded a military full of noise how to listen again. His voice was gentle. "And you gave me space to keep my promise." Tom hesitated, a flicker of vulnerability crossing her face. "If I'm honest, I spent years thinking command meant never needing guidance again. Seeing you here quiet, grounded, reminded me leadership isn't performed. It's lived." She paused, voice warm. "You still teach me?" Michael looked at her, really looked, and a quiet truth passed between them. Not romance, not longing, something older. Respect forged in a life neither asked for, but both honored. "I didn't come to teach," he said softly. "I just came to show up." For her. His hand brushed Lily's hair. Tom's eyes glimmered. "And yet you did both." A sailor jogged past, saluting Tom automatically, before slowing, offering Michael a nod of genuine respect. More footsteps echoed salutes, subtle nods, sincere whispers, not of legend, but gratitude. The Navy didn't bow to him. It remembered him. Tom took one step back, not retreating, but releasing. "You earned your peace, Michael. Guard it." He nodded. "And you earned your command. Guide it well." She gave a small, quiet smile, the kind one gives only when pride and humility meet. Fair winds. And following seas, he returned. They parted ways not in farewell, but in continuation. Her boots echoed down the hall like steady drumbeats of duty. His sneakers and Lily's tiny shoes pattered like soft footsteps of home. Outside, sunlight poured across the concrete, warming the flag that fluttered high above. The leaves rustled like gentle applause. Michael knelt, tying Lily's shoelace with the precision of someone who once tied rigging in 60-knot winds. She leaned against him. "Daddy." "Yes, if you can fly planes and drive ships and save people and make admirals listen. Why do we go home and eat pancakes instead of saving the whole world?" Michael smiled, not from pride, but from truth, earned in the deepest chambers of the heart. "Because the world doesn't need me everywhere," he said, quietly. "It needs me here with you." She thought for a long moment, then nodded. "Then we're winning." He kissed the top of her head. "We are." They walked toward the parking lot. His mop cart returned his uniform plain, his shoulders light. Officers passed and nodded, some placing hands over hearts, gently, not military protocol, but human gratitude. At the gate, Lily stopped squeezing his hand. "Daddy, yes, Star. You always come home." His voice caught. "Always." He looked back once, not at the building, not at the salutes, not at a past life calling, but at an admiral in the far distance, watching with quiet respect. No envy, no request, just understanding. Tom lifted her hand in the smallest gesture. Not a wave, a salute stripped of formality and given like a prayer. Michael returned it with a nod, enough to say everything needed. "Thank you. Lid well. Remember what matters." Then he turned and walked forward. Lily swung his arm, humming. The sun warmed their backs. The ocean whispered beyond the walls, not calling him back, but carrying him onward toward breakfast syrup and homework and small victories. Not every hero rides off into battle. Some walk home hand in hand with a child, where love is louder than war, and promises are medals worn on the heart. And in the quiet spaces between footsteps, every sailor, every leader who crossed paths with Harbor 6 felt a truth settle inside them, like an anchor finding sand. The greatest victories are not won in oceans or skies. They are won in living rooms, in bedtime stories, in held promises. Michael Carter had not retired. He had come home. And for a nation built on sacrifice, there is no sight nobler than a warrior who chooses peace and keeps it. Thank you for spending your time with us today. I hope this story touched your heart the way it was meant to, gently, quietly, and with the strength of love and honor. Before we say goodbye, I'd love to hear from you. Where are you watching from? Let us know in the comments. It warms our heart to see friends from all across the country and from around the world gather here for stories of kindness, courage, and family. If this story brought you comfort, inspiration, or just a peaceful moment in your day, please consider subscribing to our channel. Together, we're building a place where good men still exist, where love leads, and where gentle strength is never forgotten. Thank you truly for being here, for listening, and for supporting storytelling that heals. Until next time, may your days be steady, your heart be brave, and your home be filled with peace. God bless you, and thank you for watching. We'll see you in the next story.